Did you know that nearly 80% of the world's official gold reserves are now stored outside the once dominant vaults, New York and London? This marks a drastic shift from 1972, when these Western hubs held 51% of the world's gold reserves. And as you can see, the continual decline, all the way to what is considered historic lows. The world's race to gold is not accidental, it's intentional. And the implications are staggering, because as nations move their gold back home, it signals a retreat from the Western financial influence. And herein lies Donald Trump's biggest problem in his efforts, as it says here, to save the US dollar. So the question is, what's driving this exodus and why it should matter to you? Let's talk about this one. All right, so I want to take a quick minute, share some thoughts in reference to the recent development in the Eastern-led gold rush, where nations are racing at a very alarming pace to secure as much gold as they can, as well as bring back all the gold that's been stored over in the Western Hemisphere for the last several decades, as the world moved away from a gold standard and into the solely debt-based fiat Ponzi world that appears to be coming to an end. In this video here, I want to share with you some interesting graphics, as well as insights to the amount of tonnage that's moving out east, and how all this activity coincides with what I believe will be the greatest fight America's had in decades, as Donald Trump appears to return to the White House with the idea of trying to make America great again without ever mentioning gold as a part of that equation. So once again, if you guys want to hear more of these quick takes, definitely hit that thumbs up button to show your support for the channel. And then more importantly, drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this subject matter. I'm always curious to find out what you guys are thinking. And then if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you'll never miss an update when one is put out. And if you find anything valuable here, as always, make sure you take a minute to share with your family and friends so they can also get an alternative perspective on what's really happening outside the mainstream narrative, where we should never expect to hear the truth. But when it comes to this gold repatriation that's underway right now, there's three things worth paying attention to. One, gold's role as a foundation of financial sovereignty. And two, how this great repatriation is turning into a quiet power shift that's becoming hard to ignore. And three, we have now entered into a multipolar world where gold is being positioned as the new rule book that every nation will eventually have to get in line with. See, the truth remains obvious no matter how you look at it. Gold isn't just a shiny metal. It's the bedrock of financial stability. Even 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓𝗓, former head of Germany's central bank, emphasized that no currency has held global reserve status without substantial gold backing. And that was a quote out of a book written by Germany's central bank entitled Germany's Gold, in which Gene even wrote the foreword, highlighting the importance of gold in Germany, where he himself was quoted as saying, "Gold is the bedrock of stability for the international monetary system." And so once again, that's a direct quote from a central banker himself. And historically, we all know that London and New York, the gold capitals of the world, reflecting the financial dominance of the pound sterling in the 19th century and the US dollar during post-World War II. Ultimately, the central bankers think of gold as the ultimate emergency fund for nations. And just to prove the point, as you can see on this chart here, by the 1970s, at its very peak, there were 12,711 tons of gold stored in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, while at the same time, the Bank of England had 8,364 tons in their vaults. So countries actually trusted that these Western hubs would safeguard their wealth. However, over the last several decades, that trust has been eroded. So to look at it in one way, it's like storing your life savings in a bank that starts dictating how you can spend it or hinting that access might be restricted. Eventually, you're going to withdraw your money and keep it somewhere that you actually can control. And that's exactly what nations are doing when it comes to their gold and other nations' possessions. And then this leads to the next point of this repatriation efforts that's underway right now, which is clearly signaling a quiet power shift happening under the surface. And so ever since the dismantling of the Bretton Woods system in 1971, which removed the dollar's direct link to gold, that led to immediate distrust in the global monetary system. And if you even type in the words gold repatriation on Wikipedia, you get a full breakdown of each country that decided to bring back their. And from the looks of things, it looked like it started picking up momentum right when the quantitative easing process began after the GFC crisis. So we have countries like Germany, and in January 2013, the bank announced plans to repatriate 300 tons from the US and 374 tons from France by 2020. And we know how Venezuela wants their gold back, but unfortunately, it looks like it's been stolen because Venezuela loses their appeal in a long-running gold reserves battle with the UK. And then beyond the repatriation movement, we have articles like this saying that China is buying up gold like there's no tomorrow. And so clearly, it's quite obvious to see that there's something brewing behind the scenes in which nation states are all racing to secure their own gold as well as to get a hold of new gold before we reach that tipping point in the monetary system, in my opinion. And as we go back into the archives, we can see here that countries around the world have begun pulling their gold reserves from U.S. vaults. And this is an article from Zero Hedge back in 2018. And here it did a good job of listing a lot of countries and the amount of weight they were bringing back home. It says, Turkey has been the latest country to request their gold as they pulled 220 tons of gold out of the Federal Reserve System as of April 19, 2018. It says that the country's 220 tons of gold is valued at $25.3 billion, and it's as a result that Turkey has followed countries such as Germany, Netherlands, Australia, Belgium, Russia, China, and Azerbaijan. And then here you can see the of gold. Ever since the start of the GFC crisis, what appears to have happened before Lehman's fails, AIG, and all the other banks had their great financial crisis, and then you move towards the time frame where all the quantitative easing started, and then we have, as it says here, 424 tons that was taken from the Fed coffers all the way up until this last data point, which is 2018. Then that brings us back to this chart here. Right here, since its peak of gold reserve being held at the Federal Reserve, now today, 78% of global gold reserves are stored outside the Western vaults, compared to its peak, what is at 49% back in 1972. So clearly, this trend highlights a deeper issue. Nations no longer trust the Western financial systems to act in a trustworthy manner. So the case in point is with Venezuela, as I just mentioned a moment ago, along with Afghanistan, as they were denied access to their reserves during the political conflicts that they experienced with the Western Hemisphere. And so Eastern nations, such as China, are not so quietly anymore hoarding gold or buying up everything they can find ever since they started the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which has been positioned as a better way to control the markets from their side when it comes to actually delivering in physical gold, not the paper stuff the Western Hemisphere has used to manipulate the system. And so the best way to look at it is just to imagine yourself playing the game of Monopoly, but the banker keeps changing the rules during the middle of the game. And so the question is, what do? You start relying on that single banker and you figure out how to put your own money in your own pocket, or start playing a different game altogether. And then third, the last point is the multipolar order that's underway right now, as gold is clearly being used to rewrite the rules in the monetary structure. At this current moment, the West's dominance in global gold reserves is slipping fast. We have a chart here showing the estimated world official gold reserves as of Q3 of this year. And what this map tells us is that the rest of the world, which is in green here, is steadily increasing their gold reserves, outpacing the Western Hemisphere, which is the purple here, to the point where non-Western countries are now holding 46% of the world's gold, and the gap is closing fast. With this type of activity here, it's obvious that the Eastern nations are not just reclaiming they're rewriting the financial playbook as well. And then you factor in initiatives like China's Project 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗪, which allows countries to bypass the US dollar in trade, not only using gold and local currencies. This just places another potential nail in the dollar's coffin, as it puts more pressure on the Western Hemisphere, especially incoming Donald Trump, who's trying to sell the narrative that he's going to make America great again by threatening tariffs on the rest of the world, but not complying to the dollar hegemonic agendas. As the saying goes, whoever has the gold makes the rules. And so by shifting gold reserves eastward, nations like China and Russia are signaling a move towards a multipolar world where Western financial dominance is no longer guaranteed. So basically, this redistribution of gold mirrors broader shifts in economic and military power. And so at the end of the day, the steady outflow of gold from the Western vaults is more than just a financial trend. It's a seismic shift in global power. And as nations hedge their bets on gold, the old world order is quietly being rewritten. And that's why you can have puppets such as 𝗙𝗖𝗓𝗪, who's outlining how the US could ultimately benefit by having a strategic reserve in Bitcoin while dumping gold. And so you tell me, do you really think gold is worth dumping and getting into digital IOU nothings while the rest of the world is calling back all their gold and trying to buy as much as they can before that anticipated date of some type of event happening? I don't think so. So whatever happens, one thing is clear: Donald Trump and the Fed are destroying the US dollar. But then again, like I've always said, there's not much there left to destroy, given that we operate on about 2 cents worth of purchasing power from its original 100 that all 46 and soon to be 47 presidents since the Federal Reserve was created has deliberately been a part of and destroyed, robbing the American people. Once again, just taking a minute to share with you what's happening in the world and why nations are running to gold at the same time here in the West. All the mainstream news sources has jumped on the Bitcoin train, with 𝗙𝗖𝗓𝗪 leading the way, trying to convince America to sell their gold as if there's really any gold left in the vaults in the first place. But nevertheless, we see the agenda, we see the propaganda. So hopefully this is something you can learn from and not just jump on the bandwagon following trends based upon price appreciation of a digital ledger, and not have as a backup or your preferred medium of wealth preservation, whether it be in gold or silver, and not just computer codes. But anyway, hope you found value here. As always, hit that thumbs up button, show your support for the channel. And then once again, don't want to talk about all this activity without throwing out some possible strategies that you can follow yourself. And of course, number one and the cheapest happens to be the gold notes, 24 karat gold backed notes that anybody can afford, all the way to a half unit note at today's price of a little bit over $2, all the way to the gold note above my head, the 10 unit piece for just over $50 or so in USD terms. But once again, a unique way to protect and preserve everything you work hard for in gold form. At the same time, all nations are racing to get gold. So once again, this is a way to create your own personal gold standard for those who recognize opportunities before them. If you're interested in finding out more, click the link in the description or just go to buygoldnotes.com and grab you something today and put yourself in the 1% category of individuals that actually hold investable grade gold that can be used to store wealth or able to spend select locations. And then last, consider joining the silver team where you get a chance to dollar cost average into monthly by setting up an automated shipping plan for as little as 1 ounce a month all the way up to 10 ounces depending on what your budget is. And if you're interested in becoming a member, you can set up your own store like this one behind me here and become your own customer, and then take your link and share it with family and friends so they too can get their weight up, and you can earn commissions off of helping other people to get their weight up as well. Once again, if you're interested in finding out more about that, just visit the link in the description or go to mysilverteam.com to find out more. And if you're interested, look forward to working with you. But as always, just share my thoughts. Curious to hear what you think. Drop a comment, hit that thumbs up button. If you found value, share it, and let's try to play our part and help people understand the importance of gold and silver in the midst of all this distractions about ones and zeros before our nation actually sets up a Bitcoin strategic reserve, because it's inevitable that they will. But anyway, I'll save it for another video. Catch you guys later.